Shadows of devotion. Freya Weber checked her watch. For 47 a.m., the soft glow of her desk lamp cast long shadows across the empty office floor. Skyline Innovations wouldn't stir to life for another 3 hours, but here she was, reviewing the quarterly reports one final time before Dominic's presentation. 6 years as senior executive assistant to Dominic Reeves had taught her his standards. Impeccable, thorough, uncompromising. The reports needed to be flawless, just like everything else in his carefully constructed world. She rubbed her tired eyes, taking a moment to glance at his office door. Behind it lay a space she knew better than her own apartment. The exact angle he preferred his laptop. The thermostat set precisely at 72 degrees, the specific arrangement of items on his desk. Small details accumulated over years of observation and dedication. Another all-nighter, Weber. Freya startled at Dominic's voice. He stood by the elevator, coat draped over one arm, dark hair slightly disheveled. Even at this ungodly hour, he maintained that powerful presence that commanded every room. Just finishing the Singapore projections, she replied, straightening her posture. I've highlighted the discrepancies in Section 4. He approached her desk, setting down 2 coffee cups. Americano, extra shot, splash of almond milk. Freya raised an eyebrow. In 6 years, she had always been the one bringing him coffee, never the reverse. You texted that you were here early, he explained, seeming almost embarrassed. Thought you might need it. Thank you. She accepted the gesture, their fingers briefly touching. She ignored the familiar flutter in her chest. Professional boundaries. Always professional. Dominic took a seat at the edge of her desk, scanning the office landscape beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Dawn was just breaking over the city skyline, painting the clouds in hues of amber and rose. The board is nervous about the expansion, he said quietly. Harrison is pushing back hard. Freya nodded. I've prepared counterpoints for each of his likely objections. They're in the blue folder. A hint of a smile touched his lips. Of course you have. This was their rhythm, anticipating needs before they were voiced, solving problems before they fully formed. It was what made them such an effective team, what had elevated Skyline. Innovations from a promising startup to a tech industry leader in 5 short years. What it didn't explain was why Freya had turned down 3 promotions to remain by his side, or why she kept her personal life so carefully compartmentalized, with dates that never progressed past a 3rd meeting because no one quite measured up to a standard she refused to acknowledge. You should go home, get some rest before the meeting, Dominic said, standing up. I'll head out soon, she promised, knowing she wouldn't. There were still emails to organize, talking points to refine. He paused at his office door. Freya. Her name was rare on his lips. Usually it was just Weber or nothing at all. You know, I couldn't do this without you. Simple acknowledgement. Warmed her more than it should. It's doing my job, Mr. Reeves. Dominic, he corrected, as he had countless times before. Dominic, she echoed, the name feeling intimate in the empty office. After he disappeared into his office, Freya released, a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. 6 years of this dance. 6 years of being the perfect assistant, anticipating his needs, managing his life, standing in his shadow while silently harboring feelings that crossed every professional boundary. She had become indispensable to him, and he had become impossible for her. The irony wasn't lost on her to be so close to someone day after day, to know their habits and preferences, their strengths and vulnerabilities, and yet remain separated by invisible lines neither dared to cross. The morning light strengthened, illuminating her desk and the unopened letter hidden beneath her keyboard, a job offer from Prism Technologies, waiting for her signature, an escape route from feelings that led nowhere, a chance to finally step out of the shadows. Freya tucked it away and returned to her work. Not today. She wasn't ready to leave him just yet. The whispers between walls. The quarterly board meeting had gone exactly as Freya predicted. Rassen challenging the Asia-Pacific expansion, Dominic countering with the meticulously prepared data points, and ultimately securing unanimous approval. It should have been a day of quiet triumph, the kind they typically celebrated with takeout in his office while reviewing next steps. Instead, Freya found herself standing awkwardly by the water cooler, uncomfortably aware of the hushed conversations that ceased whenever she approached. The sidelong glances from the marketing team, the sudden invitation to lunch from Bethany in HR, who had barely acknowledged her existence for 3 years. "They're saying he's grooming you for coup," whispered Bethany over salads at the cafe across the street. "Or that you're the reason his engagement to Victoria Chambers ended last month." Freya nearly choked on her water. "His engagement ended because Victoria accepted a position in London. I'm his assistant, nothing more." Bethany leaned forward. "Come on, Freya. The way he looks at you. How he shut down Harrison when he suggested your department might have inflated the projections." The memory made Freya's cheeks burn. Harrison had implied her work was compromised, and Dominic had responded with cold fury. "Ms. Weber's work is beyond reproach. Question it again, and you can find another board to sit on." "He defends all his executives," Freya replied carefully. "Not like that. He doesn't." Bethany twirled her fork thoughtfully. "And then there's the fact that you've turned down every promotion to stay with him." "I like my job. No one likes being an assistant that much, honey." Back at the office, Freya found Dominic pacing in his characteristic way 3 steps. Pause, turn, repeat while dictating notes into his phone. He stopped when she entered, his expression unreadable. Family matter. Already done, she replied. Your mother's birthday lunch at the Gardenia. I've arranged for flowers to be delivered that morning. White peonies, her favorite. He blinked, momentarily surprised, then recovered. What would I do? Without you? I'd probably miss a lot of birthdays, she answered lightly. Probably his gaze lingered a moment too long. About what happened in the meeting, it's fine. It's not. Harrison was out of line. People talk, Dominic.
It's what they do?
He frowned, moving closer. What people? What are they saying? Freya busied herself organizing papers on his desk. Nothing important. Weber. His tone commanded her attention. She sighed. They think there's something between us that I'm getting. Special treatment. Dominic went still. And that bothers you. It wasn't a question, but Freya answered anyway. Everything I've accomplished. Everything I've accomplished. I see. His voice was carefully neutral. Perhaps we should be more professional in public. Perhaps. Something shifted between them, then a subtle pulling away, the establishment of a new distance. For the next 2 weeks, Dominic kept their interactions strictly business. No more early morning coffees. No shared working dinners. No moments of unexpected vulnerability in the quiet hours when the office emptied. Freya told herself this was better, healthier. The rumors began to subside, placed by new office gossip about the marketing director's affair with an intern. She focused on work with renewed intensity, staying later, arriving earlier. As if perfect competence could fill the void created by their new boundaries. Then came the annual charity Gala black tie event where Skyline Innovations showcased its philanthropic initiatives. Freya had organized every detail, from the venue to the seating arrangements, ensuring Dominic was positioned strategically among potential investors. What she hadn't anticipated was Victoria Chambers' return from London, nor her placement at Dominic's Tabbola last-minute change. Made by the event coordinator, Freya watched from the periphery as Victoria leaned close to Dominic, her hand resting casually on his arm, her laughter carrying across the room. She watched as they moved. To the dance floor, Victoria's red dress, a vivid contrast to Dominic's black tuxedo. "They make a striking couple," commented Thomas Parker, the company's legal counsel, appearing beside her with 2 champagne flutes. He offered one to Freya. "They're not a couple," she replied, accepting the drink gratefully. "Not anymore, Thomas." "Agreed. But these things have a way of rekindling, especially with someone like Victoria, ambitious, connected from the right family background." He gave Freya a sympathetic look. "You've done a remarkable job with the event, by the way. You ever consider moving to the legal department? I could use someone with your organizational skills and discretion." Freya recognized the offer for what it was, an escape route. A way to maintain her dignity before the inevitable happened, and Victoria reclaimed her place in Dominic's life. "I'll think about it," she said, her eyes still fixed on the dance floor, where Dominic now looked directly at her, his expression unreadable over Victoria's shoulder. That night, after the last guests departed and the venue staff began clearing away the evidence of celebration, Freya made her decision. It was time to stop waiting for something that would never happen. It's time to reclaim her professional reputation in her heart. The resignation letter took less than 20 minutes to write. Breaking point, Freya chose a Tuesday to leave the resignation letter on Dominic's desk, specifically the Tuesday he would be in closed-door budget meetings until late afternoon. This gave her time to quietly pack her personal items while maintaining the appearance of business as usual. She moved methodically through her tasks, training the temporary assistant who would cover until a permanent replacement was found, finalizing the transition documents, and transferring her ongoing projects. 2 appropriate team members. Each completed task felt like cutting another thread that bound her to this place, to him, taking a trip. Asked Olivia from accounting, eyeing the small box of personal items Freya had discreetly placed under her desk. "Just spring cleaning." Freya replied with a practiced smile. The day crawled by with excruciating slowness. By 5:30 p.m., most of the staff had departed, leaving the office floor in that liminal state between workday bustle and evening emptiness. Dominic remained sequestered in the conference room with the finance team. Visible through glass walls, his focus intense as he reviewed projections. Freya took the opportunity to slip into his office and place her resignation letter in the center of his desk-crisp white envelope against dark mahogany, impossible to miss. Her hand lingered on the paper, a moment of hesitation before she pulled away. 3 weeks' notice, professional, impersonal. No hint of the real reason she could no longer stay. She returned to her desk and sent her final email confirmation to Thomas Parker that she would accept the position in legal, effective after her notice period, a lateral move rather than an advancement. But it offered distance and a fresh start within the company she had helped build. At 7:12 p.m., conference room door finally opened. The finance team emerged looking exhausted but satisfied, nodding respectfully to Freya as they passed. Dominic remained behind, gathering papers, his shoulders tense in a way she recognized as fatigue. This was her cue to leave. Normally, she would have entered with his preferred tea and a concise summary of matters requiring immediate attention. Tonight, she simply gathered her coat and the box from beneath her desk. She was halfway to the elevator when she heard the conference room door open again. Quickening her pace, she pressed the elevator button repeatedly, irrationally hoping the doors would open before he noticed her leaving. "Weber." His voice stopped her as effectively as a physical barrier. She turned. Forcing composure? Yes. Dominic approached, his tie loosened, cuffs unbuttoned, small signs of the long day weighing on him. "I didn't realize you were still here. Could you come to my office? I need to discuss the Tokyo client before tomorrow's call. I've left notes. For Jennifer, she'll be covering the call." He frowned, noticing the box in her arms. "What's this? Personal items? I can see that." His voice sharpened. "Why are you removing them from your desk?" The elevator arrived with a soft chime. Shreya stepped inside, holding the doors open with her shoulder. "It's all explained in the letter on your desk. Jennifer has been briefed on all ongoing projects." Dominic's expression shifted from confusion to realization, then to something harder to define. "You're resigning?" without even discussing it with me first? It's a standard 2 weeks notice. 3, actually. That's not what I asked. The elevator doors attempted to close. Dominic blocked them with his hand, stepping inside the car. The doors closed behind him, leaving them in the enclosed space together. Is this about Victoria? He asked abruptly. Freya stared at him. What? At the gala? You saw us together? And assumed this has nothing to do with Victoria, she interrupted, heat rising to her face. This is a professional decision. What? I've accepted a position in legal. The elevator descended in silence for 3 floors before Dominic hit the emergency stop button. The car jolted to a halt. What are you doing? Freya demanded. Having the conversation you're trying to avoid. He took the box from her arms and set it on the floor. You don't want to work in legal. You've turned down 3 better offers to stay as my assistant. Maybe I'm finally recognizing my worth. Your worth? His voice rose slightly. Do you think I don't know your worth, Freya? Do you think anyone? And this company values you more than I do. You value my work, she corrected. My efficiency. My ability to anticipate your needs and manage your life. That's not the same thing. And you think Thomas Parker sees more than that? I think it doesn't matter what Thomas sees. Freya reached around him for the emergency button. This is inappropriate, Dominic. Please restart the elevator, he caught. Her wrist, his touch, gentle but firm.
Oh.
Why are you really leaving? The direct question, the physical contact, the enclosed space, it was too much. 6 years of carefully maintained control crumbled because I can't do this anymore. The words escaped with more emotion than she intended. I can't keep pretending that my feelings for you are strictly professional. I can't keep watching you with women like Victoria, knowing they fit into your world in ways I never will. I can't keep being the person who knows everything about you while you know almost nothing about me. Dominic's expression transformed, shock giving way to something softer, more vulnerable. Freya, ... don't. She pulled her hand away. God, don't say anything that makes this harder than it already is. Please, just let me go. His response was barely audible, almost a whisper. Can't. Unspoken truths, the elevator hummed softly in the background. The only sound in the suspended moment between Freya's plea and Dominic's confession. His words hung in the air between them. I can't. Simple but weighted with years of unspoken. Feelings you can't what, Dominic? Freya asked, her voice barely audible.
Let you go.
He moved closer, eliminating the careful distance they had always maintained. Not like this. Not without telling you the truth. Which is, I've spent the last 3 years trying to convince myself that what I feel for you is nothing more than professional appreciation. His hand reached up hesitantly, hovering near her cheek without touching. That watching you leave every night has been the hardest part of my day. And that I've dated women like Victoria because they're safe. They want the CEO, the status, the lifestyle. Not me. Freya stood perfectly still, afraid any movement might shatter this moment of honesty. Do you know why I never promoted you? He continued. Not because I couldn't function without you, though that's certainly true, but because every promotion would have moved you further from me. Selfish, I know. Why didn't you say anything? She whispered. Power dynamics, company policies, the board's expectations. He sighed, but mostly fear. Fear that you'd feel obligated or pressured. Fear that you'd say yes out of some misplaced sense of loyalty rather than genuine feeling. Freya finally moved, placing her hand over his and guiding it to her cheek. You should have trusted me more, I know that now. It does. His thumb brushed across her skin, tentative and reverent. When I saw that box in your arms, I realized I was about to lose you anyway. All my careful boundaries didn't change how I felt. They just guaranteed I'd never know if you might have felt the same. The elevator lights flickered, breaking the spell between them. Dominic reached past her to release the emergency stop. The car resumed its descent, reality intruding on their private confession. We can't have this conversation here, he said as the elevator reached the ground floor. Not properly. The doors opened to the deserted lobby, security lighting casting long shadows across marble floors. My place or yours? Freya asked, with newfound boldness. There's a cafe 2 blocks over. Neutral territory. She nodded, understanding his caution. Whatever happened next would fundamentally change their relationship. They needed clarity, not just emotion. The night air was cool against Freya's flushed skin as they walked in silence to the cafe, a small, dimly lit establishment with private booths and discreet service, the kind of place where conversations could unfold without interruption. I've imagined this scenario 100 different ways, Dominic admitted after they were seated, a pot of tea between them. None of them involved you trying to leave first. I wasn't trying to leave you, Freya clarified. I was trying to leave a situation that had become painful because of the rumors, because of how much truth there was in them, at least from my side. She wrapped her hands around her teacup, drawing comfort from its warmth. Every day became an exercise in pretending I didn't feel what I felt. Pretending I was satisfied with being indispensable rather than ... wanted. Dominic reached across the table, covering her hands with his. You have no idea how wanted you are, Freya. The simple touch, so casual now after years of careful avoidance, sent warmth cascading through her. The company has policies about executives dating subordinates, she reminded him. I know. I wrote most of them. He smiled ruefully. Which means I also know the exceptions and procedures. Disclosure forms. Reassignment of direct reporting lines. External review of performance evaluations. You've researched this, she realized, extensively. After Victoria ended our engagement, I may have spent considerable time exploring my options. Victoria ended it. This revelation surprised her. I thought that I broke it off, Dominic shook his head. She told me I was emotionally unavailable, that I talked more about my assistant than I did about her. She wasn't wrong. Freya digested this information, recalibrating her understanding of the past months. So at the gala, ... Victoria was making one last attempt. I was being polite while making it clear we had no future. He hesitated. I saw you watching. I wanted to go to you, explain, but you were being careful, professional, cowardly, he corrected. I've faced hostile takeovers and market crashes with less fear than I felt at the thought of telling you how I feel. And how do you feel exactly? Freya asked, needing the words spoken plainly after so many years of subtext and inference. Dominic's expression softened, vulnerability replacing his usual composed facade. I'm in love with you, Freya. Not as my assistant, not as a valued employee, as the woman who sees me clearly and stays anyway. The woman I've tried not to need and failed miserably. The words she had longed to hear, finally spoken aloud. Felt tears threatening and blinked them back. Your turn, he said softly. I've shown my hand. Freya took a deep breath. I've been in love with you since that night in Singapore, 3 years ago. The typhoon hit, flights were grounded, and instead of attending the reception, we ordered room service and worked through contingency plans until dawn. You fell asleep on the sofa in my hotel suite, and I realized I'd never seen you so unguarded before. That's when I knew. Dominic's eyes widened in recognition. Singapore was the moment for me too. But it was when you handed me a coffee the next morning and said, we've got this. Not you've got this. We. Like we were truly partners. We were. We are. Freya turned her hand to interlace her fingers with his. So what happens now? Now we figure out how to do this right. No more hiding, but no recklessness either. Respect you and this company too much for that. Does this mean I should tear up my resignation letter? Only if you want to? If you truly want to work in legal, I won't stand in your way. Freya considered this. I think a transfer might actually be wise. Not because I want to leave you, but because we need to establish boundaries between our professional and personal lives. Dominic nodded, understanding. Whatever you decide, I just want you in my life, Freya. The rest we can figure out together. The first time in years, the weight of unspoken feelings lifted from her shoulders. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them honestly together. New Horizons 3, months after that night in the elevator. Freya stood in her new office on the legal floor, adjusting the placement of her nameplate. Freya Weber, Senior Legal Affairs Coordinator. The promotion had come with Thomas Parker's blessing. Recognizing skills that transcended her role as an executive assistant, her desk faced the floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a different perspective on the city than she'd had from her station. Outside Dominic's office, the morning light streamed in, illuminating the fresh flowers delivered weekly, a habit Dominic had maintained despite her protests that it would fuel office gossip. "Let them talk," he had said with newfound indifference to rumors. "We've done everything by the book." And they had. Disclosure forms filed with HR, reporting structures reorganized so that Freya answered directly to Thomas rather than Dominic. Their relationship officially acknowledged in a brief, matter-of-fact company-wide email that generated less scandal than anticipated. In a corporate world accustomed to power plays and strategic alliances, their relationship was quickly accepted as old news, overshadowed by the more pressing matter of the company's expansion into European markets. A knock at her door pulled Freya from her thoughts. Jennifer Chen, Dominic's new executive assistant, stood in the doorway with a tablet in hand. "Morning, Freya. I have the revised contracts for the Milan acquisition." Freya smiled, gesturing for her to enter. "Thanks, Jennifer. How's he treating you, Mr. Reeves?" Double quotes, Jennifer searched for the right word. "Exacting, but fair. That sounds about right. He wanted me to remind you about dinner tonight. 7:30, not 8. Something about surprising you." Freya raised an eyebrow. "Did he now?" Jennifer's expression remained professionally neutral, though her eyes betrayed curiosity. Everyone wondered about the relationship between the CEO and his former assistant, now a rising star in legal. The speculation ranged from calculated career advancement to genuine romance. With the truth somewhere in the complex middle ground, they navigated daily after Jennifer left. Freya turned her attention to the Milan contracts, losing herself in the familiar rhythm of work. Her new role challenged her in ways being an assistant never had, demanding legal knowledge she was rapidly acquiring through night courses and mentorship from Thomas. The learning curve was steep but exhilarating. At lunchtime, she made her way to the executive dining room, another change in routine. As Dominic's assistant, she had eaten at her desk, always available. Now, she joined the senior staff for meals. Contributing to conversations about strategy and growth, Dominic was already seated when she arrived, deep in conversation with the CFO about quarterly projections. He glanced up as she entered, his professional demeanor softening almost imperceptibly. These small moments of recognition sustained them through workdays where they maintained careful professionalism. "Ms. Weber," he acknowledged as she took her seat across the table rather than beside him, another conscious choice to balance their personal and professional lives. "Mr. Reeves," she returned with equal formality, before turning to engage the marketing director in conversation about the upcoming product launch. They had established unspoken rules for workplace interactions. No private jokes, no lingering glances, no special treatment. Dominic was, if anything, more demanding of the legal department since their relationship began, conscious of any perception of favoritism. The afternoon passed in a flurry of meetings and consultations. At 6:30, Freya gathered her things, no longer bound to the office by Dominic's schedule. This separation of their professional lives had been perhaps the most significant adjustment learning to function independently after years of synchronized workflows. As she waited for the elevator, Dominic appeared beside her, maintaining a respectable distance. "Heading out?" he asked casually.
Yes.
"I need to change before dinner about that." He lowered his voice. "Pack an overnight bag. I've arranged for us to stay at the peninsula after dinner." "That's rather presumptuous, Mr. Reeves," she teased. Though they had spent most nights together since their confession 3 months ago. The elevator arrived, empty except for them. As the doors closed, Dominic moved closer, finally allowing himself to touch her, a hand at her waist, tender and possessive. "I've been presumptuous since the moment I stopped that elevator," he admitted. "Fortunately, you haven't seemed to mind. I've always appreciated your confidence." She leaned into him slightly. Though I draw the line at overnight bags without proper notice. Some of us plan our wardrobes carefully. Fair enough. He pressed the button for the parking garage. Then I should probably tell you we'll be gone for the weekend. The helicopter leaves for the vineyard tomorrow morning. Freya turned to face him fully. The vineyard. You hate that place. You said, and I quote, "If I never see another grape, it'll be too soon. I've reconsidered my position on grapes." His tone was light, but something in his expression made her pulse quicken, and on several other matters. The elevator reached the garage. Dominic held the door, allowing her to exit first. "I'll pick you up at 7, or something that makes you happy." As Freya drove home to her apartment, still her own space. Though she spent less time there, now she reflected on the past 3 months. The transition hadn't been seamless. There had been awkward moments, adjustments to boundaries, learning to be partners rather than CEO and assistant. They had argued, compromised, re-established terms of engagement, but beneath the complications lay a foundation of deep understanding built over 6 years of working side by side. Dominic knew her strengths and vulnerabilities. She understood his pressures and fears. They had seen each other at their worst and most vulnerable long before becoming lovers. That evening, dressed in a midnight blue gown that made her feel both elegant and powerful, Freya opened her door to find Dominic waiting with an expression she hadn't seen before, a mixture of certainty and nervous anticipation. "You look beautiful," he said, taking her hand. The restaurant was intimate, tucked away from the public. Their table overlooked the city lights, champagne already waiting. Throughout dinner, Dominic seemed distracted, his usual focused attention wandering. "Is everything all right?" Freya finally asked. "You've barely touched your food." "Everything's perfect," he assured her. "Just thinking about how much has changed in 3 months. Having regrets?" "Only that I waited so long." He reached across the table for her hand. "Do you remember what you said that night in the elevator? About watching me with women like Victoria, feeling they fit into my world in ways you never would." Freya nodded, the memory still vivid. "I've been thinking about that, about worlds and fitting and belonging." He took a deep breath. "The truth is, Freya, you created the world I want to live in. Before you, my life was just work and ambition and empty achievements. You made it something real." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box, placing it on the table between them. "I'm not proposing," he clarified quickly, seeing her expression. "Not yet. I'd be rushing things, even for me." Freya's heart slowed from its sudden gallop. "And what is this?" "A promise." He opened the box to reveal a delicate platinum key pendant on a chain. "This weekend I'm showing you the vineyard property, not because I've suddenly developed an interest in wine, but because I've purchased the adjacent land. There's a house there, nothing fancy. It's just somewhere private, where we can be ourselves without titles or roles or expectations." He lifted the necklace. "This is the key to that house. To our future, whenever we're ready to define it." Freya's eyes filled with tears as she turned, allowing him to fasten the necklace around her neck. The key rested against her skin, cool and promising. "So that's why you needed the weekend," she said softly. "That, and I thought it might be nice to have 48 uninterrupted. Ours to continue making up for 6 years of professional distance." Freya laughed, the sound bright with happiness. "It's always the efficient planner. I learned from the best." He raised his glass. "To new horizons." "To new horizons," she echoed, touching her glass to his. Outside the restaurant windows, the city stretched before them, the same skyline they had built their careers beneath, now transformed by the promise of a shared future extending beyond office walls and corporate hierarchies. A horizon neither had dared to imagine now lay open before them, waiting to be explored together.